Good evening, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us for this webinar on making your application to Hills Road. My name's Ian Pryor, I'm the Deputy Principal, and whether you're a prospective applicant watching this evening or the parent and carer of a prospective applicant, it's great to have you with us and interested in joining the college. Joining me for the next 30 minutes to an hour or so is Louise, our Director of Marketing and Student Recruitment, and she's just going to tell you a little bit now about what we'll be covering over the course of this webinar.
Great, well, thanks ever so much for joining us. Sorry, bear with me, there we go. Right, okay, so today we're just going to very briefly go through, talk about the Year 12 programme and the support available to all students. We'll then give you some guidance on how to choose your A-level subjects, information on how to kind of navigate your way through the entry requirements, about how to submit your application, the dates that you really need to kind of keep in mind for that whole application journey, and then campus visits, and then we've answering some of your FAQs. So thank you very much to everybody that did submit questions. Some of your questions will be answered by the presentation, and then any other questions will be answered at the end. So.
Lovely, thanks Louise. So I'm just going to start off by talking a bit about what life is like at Hills and what you can expect as a Year 12 student joining us, what your programme will look like. So most students join us to study a 3 A-level programme, and so what we've tried to do is capture on this slide sort of the essence of what that looks like on paper in sort of pie chart format really. There are 25 periods or slots within our timetable in the week, and if you're doing 3 A-levels, then 4 of those sessions per subject will be taken up with A-level lessons. And then we also have what makes up the rest of our curriculum, so our future ready sessions with a progress support tutor, our extended project qualification, and an enrichment, which are all part of the core curriculum study program in Year 12 are also on there. So that takes you up to around about 15, typically 15 periods are used, and then there are 10 periods which sometimes are referred to as free periods by students. They're really independent study time periods, and what we do is work with students to help them over time learn to make the most of those free periods and the other time that they have to keep on top of their study. So that's kind of what it looks like in paper from my perspective. But what we're going to do now is show you a short video where you can hear the voice of a student in terms of how they experience life at Hills Road.
The fun thing about sixth form is that there is no typical day. I'll usually spend my free periods in the library, which is my favourite study spot, and I'll hang out with my friends at lunch, but sometimes I get to go home earlier, which is great.
Typical day would be I would come in, I would start one of my lessons, so say maths or chemistry, get something to eat with my friends and hang out, or if I need to do some work, I can spend my time however I'd like.
Coming in around 9 till 11 because I have free periods in the mornings where I can just do independent learning. Then I'll go to my subjects, which are around like an hour long, and then if I have any homework, I'll do that in the library.
We'll either go study together in either the study centre or the G block, where there's lots of space to really be focused and work really hard, or if we want to go somewhere else, we'll go to the leisure park just nearby.
So I hope that came through and you could hear that okay, and that gave you a flavour of things from our students' perspective. So let's move on to think a little bit about what academic life is like at Hills Road. One of the reasons I was really keen to come and work in the sixth form college sector when I came into teaching was that I had attended a sixth form college myself as a student back more years ago than I care to remember. And definitely one of the things that I've seen and experienced firsthand, both as a student and as a teacher and staff member, is that we really are, as our most sixth form colleges, about bridging that gap between school and university. And if you're looking for something that moves you on from school but still has all of the safety net underneath you before you go to university, then sixth form colleges can really be the answer. And we certainly think that that is something that we provide really well. So in terms of the teaching, one of the reasons our teachers love love working here is that they are experts in their field, they're passionate about their subjects, and they get to work with students teaching advanced level content to students who are equally interested in learning the subject. We've got some fantastic resources and facilities. So we have a fully stocked library, and the library team also have all sorts of digital resources. And we have a fabulous new study centre where students can go and study in their independent periods as well. And because you're not mapped out in terms of your timetable all of the time, there's space for you to discuss with other students, explore new ideas together in your free periods, and attend things like talks and extracurricular stretch activities as well in subjects. And what you'll find, let's say you want to come and study computer science, you'll find yourself alongside other people who've chosen to study computer science. They're really interested in that subject too. And the other thing that is a feature of our teaching is that there is all sorts of workshop support, opportunities to go along and get help from older students or from teachers in small group basis, on a small group basis to help you make further progress. And you just get that bit more independence to what you might get in a school setting. You'll be in a city sixth form. If you're not timetabled to be at college, you can go out, go across to the leisure park, go into town. That's fine. And we'll help you, learn to make the most, learn to help students make the most of that freedom so that they manage time and workload appropriately. So it's very much a college timetable rather than a school timetable. We're not going to be mapping out how students spend every minute of their time with us. Mentioned the study spaces. There are also social spaces. We've got a refurbished cafe and our hub area down in in the lower floor of the main building. They're really lovely spaces for students to get together, socialise, grab a bite to eat, grab a coffee, with Wi-Fi running all through the college so that students can work on laptops, tablets, check their phones, and study in a variety of different environments. Loads and loads of clubs and societies as well, many run by students who've got particular interests, and talked about the enrichment a little earlier in terms of that sitting in the Year 12 study programme, but also lots and lots of extracurricular opportunities, whether that's speakers coming in to talk or whether it's competitions that students can enter, maths, chemistry Olympiads running. Those types of opportunities are there for our students. Moving on, though, it's not all about what goes on inside the classroom in terms of the A-level side of things and the academic side of things. There's also lots of opportunities to get involved in other ways in college life. So we've got a fabulous drama and dance department, a theatre. We do an annual musical. We're ramping up, getting ready with excitement for Young Frankenstein this year. I've bought my tickets for me and my family to go. And there are many other plays, dance shows, performances put on through the year. We also have a fantastic gym and sports and tennis centre. Got a really, really vibrant sports department who run all sorts of competitive teams with regular tournaments and fixtures. They're the top ranking, have been for the 9th year in a row now, the top ranking college in the Association of Colleges Sport in the Eastern region, and with I think 5th nationally last year. So they do really, really well. And then there's all sorts of community music and clubs and society opportunities as well. So some opportunities to get involved in community initiatives, charity events. We've got a really, really vibrant music department with all sorts of groups and ensembles and orchestras and facilities, and also lots, as I said earlier, of clubs and societies, opportunities to share your passion with other students who enjoy those types of activities and interests as well. Moving on to the support side of things. So it's also really, really important to us at Hills Road that our students feel supported and know where they can go to for help, for advice, for guidance between lessons. And so there's an awful lot of support around there. The first thing to say is that our progress and support tutors are a really key person for students while they're with us. They're their go-to person, their first point of contact, and would be for parents and carers as well. And they're really uniquely placed to help signpost students to all of the other services, which include student services. They're there every day just to help with general queries and questions that students might have. But if students are perhaps struggling with their well-being or got worries or concerns, then sometimes our well-being service, which is available for drop-in sessions immediately, can be of help. And they often help triage and direct students towards our counselling service if things are significant enough for that to be warranted. And we've invested heavily in expanding that counselling service in recent years as well. And it's got to the point now where the waiting list for our counselling service is lower and shorter than it would be for accessing those types of services through the NHS. We also have a really well-trained and skilled study skills support team. They're based out of our new study centre, and they provide students with all sorts of advice on organisation, time management, executive functioning, revision skills. And then working out of student services is our bursary team, who help students who may be able to apply and qualify for financial support. And our careers team do an awful lot of work with students, helping them plan their progression and their next steps, giving them advice on university applications, routes into employment, degree apprenticeships and the like. So lots and lots of support there from those different teams. Lou, I'm going to hand over to you about choosing your subjects.
Thanks, Ian. So trying to decide which subjects you're going to take can sometimes be a little bit challenging. So hopefully we've got some hints and tips here which will help you navigate this really important decision. So how do you decide? Well, the first thing, you're going to have to study for A levels. You take them and you study them at a deep level. So you need to take subjects that you actually are going to really like. So the first thing is, our advice is make a list, write down the subjects that you really like, and then go through and highlight the ones that you're good at. And that's a really good basis for starting, because you want to take something that you enjoy and that you think you're going to have a really good chance at succeeding at. And the third part is if you've got any ideas about what you might like to do next. If you don't worry. But A levels are a stepping stone to what you want to do afterwards, whether that's employment, apprenticeship or university. So it's really important that you make sure that if you do have a kind of a career progression in mind, that you do your research beforehand to make sure that you're taking the right A levels that are going to support that progression. So we have here, do I need the A level? So there are some subjects where you don't actually need to have studied it at A level to be able to take it at university. So economics is a really good example. For economics, you need to have taken ideally maths. That's the key subject that most universities are going to want you to have taken. For politics, it will be essay writing subjects, especially with subjects like English. So do make sure you do your research beforehand, just to make sure that you're taking the right mix of subjects that are going to support you. And we've got some ideas of how you can do that shortly. We do a lot of subjects that students haven't taken before, and those listed on the screen here are the ones that it's likely that most of you won't have actually had a chance to do at GCSE. So, for example, in business, we may have sort of 1 in 4 students that will have done business. For economics, it's sort of 1 in 7. So what we do is we start you on that journey. We take it one step at a time, and we make sure that everybody is kind of learning it at the same pace until you start getting into your subject. So if you haven't taken the subject before, don't let it put you off. If you like the idea of it, you think it might be something that you would like to do, maybe beyond A levels, then absolutely give it a go, because you'll probably really enjoy it. Now, we often hear comments around English and maths, and what we want to do is really just dispel some of those myths. So comments like, employers and universities like to see maths or English A level, or, we sometimes hear that, family friends may say, oh, they're good subjects to take, they're going to support you well for university. That's absolutely true, they will do, but they will support you in the same way if you choose subjects that you're interested in and that you really want to take, because that's the career path or the progression path that you want to go down. So only take those subjects if they tick the boxes in terms of the subjects that you really like and that you're good at. There's very little point taking maths at A level if you don't really like it. Maths at A level is difficult, and you really need to enjoy the subject to be taking it at advanced level. Comments like, I want to take maths or English because I want to do an apprenticeship, or I want to do journalism or engineering. Absolutely, that's the perfect reason to take it. Or, as we said before, because you like them and you feel that you're good at them. So if you're still not sure what to study and you're finding this a really difficult decision, then subjects like history and geography, the English courses, they all keep your options open, as do the sciences, if that's more the route that you want to go down. So if you're not really sure, or even you can't really think of like, well, what would I put down as my third A level? Because that's something we often hear. People know what they want to do as their first and second choices, but they're not really sure about their third. So do think about, keeping your options open and choosing subjects which are going to be useful almost no matter which course you may decide to go on, if you do decide to go to university. Now, this is a fantastic website, informedchoices.ac.uk. It's by the Russell Group, and it's a really useful website to use if you're not sure about what you want to do, or you're not sure which A levels to choose, because you can put in the subjects that you're interested in, and then it will show you all of the degree programs that could be available to you. And you can do it the other way around as well. If you think, oh, I'd like to go and do something to do with environmental science, then you can actually put that in as your subject, and then it will show you the A levels that you would need to support that. And it classifies them as essential or helpful. So, for example, if you were going to do medicine, it would be essential that you had biology and chemistry, and then it would talk about what those helpful subjects would be as well. Excuse me, there we go. Now, this, again, a question that comes up an awful lot. Should I be taking 3 or 4 A levels? So I think that just to frame this to begin with, this is really around taking 4 different subjects. If you're taking further maths, that is classed as a 4 A level because you have to apply for maths and further maths together. But it's for those of you out there thinking, I'd like to take 4 separate A levels. You need to bear in mind that, first of all, it does have a much higher admission score of 78. The number of students that take 4 A levels at the college is well below 10%. In fact, it's much lower than that. Mainly because universities typically don't ask for 4 A levels, they ask for 3 really good ones. And what we often find is people may think, actually, I'm going to start on a 4 A level programme, but when they consider that actually they have to do their EPQ as well, and the workload that's involved, because you will get, you're expected to do 5 hours of homework per subject per week, it means that your time starts to get compressed. And so we very much say you should only really be taking 4 A levels if you absolutely think you can do it, and you really think you need that there is a real need for you to be doing that subject, those subjects as well. So over to you, Lou.
So I'm just going to talk a little bit about what you can expect in terms of the difference between GCSE and A level. That's often a question that comes up from applicants and their families. I suppose the first clue is what the A in A levels stands for, which is advanced. So there's deeper exploration into content. There's more content in detail, and probably the skills that are being assessed through the examination and other assessment are more higher order skills, so evaluating, more critical thinking that are involved. So that's one of the key differences. But then how it plays out in terms of how it feels learning those subjects, we've just tried to gather some of those thoughts represented by this slide here. So firstly, there definitely is a sense of greater independence and responsibility placed upon students. But I think what I'd want everyone to take away from this is to say that, it's not the expectation that in your first week you learn to handle that greater independence and responsibility right away. That's what the teachers and the progress and support tutors are there to do with you. It's to help you build up and get used to that greater freedom you've got. And there'll be more guardrails and more support for you and more scaffold until you start to feel comfortable with that. The academic expectations do increase. As Lou mentioned, there is going to be an expectation of doing work outside of the classroom, primarily to consolidate what's been done in the class or to do some flip learning to sort of get to a threshold level of understanding before lessons take place. And it is typically from somewhere between 3 up to 5 hours per week that you might expect to be doing in each subject during the course of a week. And so because of that, time management's really important, and that's where the progress and support tutors will be helping as part of our Future Ready programme. What they do is do work and sessions with people, looking at their timetable, encouraging students to identify which independent study periods they might use for which subjects, which ones they might treat themselves to a lie-in and come in a little bit later if they haven't got lessons, but where they'd make up that time elsewhere in the week, in evenings or weekends as well. A lot of the work that we do with students through Future Ready and through messaging from teachers is about building good study habits from the start, keeping on top of that work, those 3 to 5 hours per week, starting to recognise the topics that you're feeling confident about, the ones that are slightly harder, and doing some independent learning around those in particular, and also what good effective revision looks like. There's a lot of science out there now about how students learn, how we as human beings manage to remember things. And so there'll be a lot around the importance of memorization and retrieval practice as well. And going back to what Lou was saying earlier, subject choices do matter. And I think, this is the point at which, if you're doing a subject that you enjoy and it's a subject that you're good at and you're working alongside like-minded students who are equally passionate about that subject, you don't mind doing the work. You actually, you're finding it really interesting and engaging, and that's what our students typically find. And I think the final message we want to leave around this is that it isn't always all about the books either and the studying. It's important that students keep balance, and we do encourage students to know when it's time to step away from the book, step away from their laptop, step away from the study packs, and go and do the things that also that are equally important to them, but are really important around well-being, whether that's spending time with friends, pursuing a hobby or an interest, spending times with family, and also the role of things like jobs and work experience for earning a bit of money and for self-esteem as well. Those are really important too. So hopefully that sums up a little bit about those areas. Lou, you're just going to talk through a little bit more about the process of applying to Hills.
Absolutely. Okay, so now we're going to sort of take you through the entry requirements, how they work, and then about making your application. But just to begin with, we thought it'd be quite interesting to actually give you a bit of a understanding of how our current Year 12 is made up, because we often get a lot of questions around this. So this graph shows the where the students and the schools that the students have attended before. So CAP stands for Cambridge Area Partnership Schools, and those are the local Cambridgeshire schools, of which we are part of that group, as are other post-16 centres. We then have non-CAP state schools, so those would be schools sort of beyond that partnership. Independent makes up 16%, and then other are homeschooled or students coming from overseas. So let's start with the entry requirements. So when you're looking at applying to the college, you have to be qualified by admission score and by predicted GCSE grades. This information is available on the website, and we'll show you a little bit more about how you can find this on the website shortly, but it's on each subject page. When you go onto a website, you can either, in the navigation, go to A-level subjects or just search it up, and you'll see all of our 36 subjects will come up, and you click on those and then you'll be able to see the entry requirements that we have. It's worth also noting, and we will reference this a few times as we go through, because there's a little bit of misunderstanding or sort of questions around predicted grades. The predicted grades are always supplied by your school, or if you're homeschooled, they'll come from your personal tutor. They're never supplied by the student, and if for any reason we ever have to make any amends to those, it would always come via the school to make sure that the grades are correct. So this just gives you a little bit of an idea. So when you land on the subject page, if you scroll down just below the introduction, you'll see that it says here what the entry requirements are, and it will explain to you what the admission score is and what the GCSE grades are as well. And Ian's just going to give you a few examples of how they work in practice.
That's right. So if we start with business, which was a subject that I have taught in the past when I joined the college. So what you can see from here is that in terms of the subject-specific requirements, we'd be looking for students studying A-level business to have a 6 in either English language and or in English literature. And that's because there's a fair amount of written work involved in the business A-level in terms of answering the questions in the assessment. And then we also ask for a grade 4 in maths, because it's surprising to learn that business does contain some maths, quite a bit. None of the maths is particularly hard to do in business, but you definitely need to be happy handling numbers and working around those. And then we ask for the minimum entry admission score, which is typically 58 or 56 for Cambridge Area Partnership students. And yeah, as you've seen or will see, is made up typically of sort of a blend of perhaps 5s and 6s. So that gives you an idea of what we'd be looking for in business. You might note that there's no mention of GCSE business in there because not all schools offer GCSE business. And as Lou was saying earlier, often it's the case that you will not be on your own as someone who hasn't studied that subject before. So, you know, we don't worry about GCSE business, although, you know, if it's something you've done and you've enjoyed it and done well at it, then that might indicate that'd be a good choice for you, as an example. Moving across to more of a science subject. So in biology, there's we're looking for a grade 7 in biology and then a 6 in chemistry and maths, for example, if you've studied separate sciences, or a grade 7 across combined sciences if you've done a two grade science combination, and a 6 in maths. Now, because biology is a science subject, we set the admission score slightly higher there, and that's typically 71 or 69 if you are a Cambridge Area Partnership student. So it gives you a little bit of an idea and a flavour of what to expect when looking at those entry requirements.
So what we're going to do now is show you more about how you can calculate your score. So on every subject page, you'll see a button and it says Admission Score Calculator. If you click on that button, page will appear, and what it asks you to do is it asks you to include your predicted grades. So in the example that we have here, I've just included a 6 for maths and English, and then I have included another 6. So I would have another 4 grades where I would be predicted a 6 in those subjects. And then I have 2 subjects where I'm predicted a 5. So I've put those in at the bottom. So you select we calculate it based on your 6 kind of strongest GCSE subjects. And some of the questions come through, you know, does it matter what subject that is? No, it doesn't. We only accept 2 level 2 equivalent qualifications like a BTEC. But if you've got a GCSE in Japanese or Polish or Russian, that does count as a GCSE. So if you've got a 8 or 9 in that subject, we absolutely would count that as part of your admission score. And that's what we will go through and calculate as part of our process to be able to then work out our applications. So once you've put your entry requirements in, you will then get to this screen, and this tells you what your admission score is. So as you can see, my admission score here is 58. So that means I've achieved the minimum score. And with a score of 58, it means that I can actually, with the admission score, but I would be able to apply for 30 out of 36 of our subjects. Ian, you're going to talk about sort of just a bit of how they're made up and the admission scores.
Yeah, absolutely. So the admission score is basically designed to give us a sense of the overall academic profile of students who are applying to join us. So I think, you know, one of the myths that perhaps exists around joining Hills Road is that you have to have sort of 8s and 9s across the board, and I hope very much that this slide shows that isn't the case at all. To an extent, it might depend which subjects you're looking to do as to just how strong that profile might need to be. But as you can see from the minimum score, the 58 to 56 for CAP students, that could be made up of a blend of grade 6s and grade 5s across the subjects that you're looking at doing. And for maths, to study maths, you do need a 7 at GCSE maths, but the actual point score you need in terms of admission score is only a couple of points or so more higher than that minimum score. So again, 6s in lots of other subjects, provided you've got that 7 in maths, is likely to get you to that score. And then if you are looking to do something that involves a higher score, which is typically involving the sciences, computer science as well, then you can see it tends to need to be made up more of 6s, 7s, and maybe the odd 8 or 2 or 3 here and there as well, to get you to that sort of 70, 71 score, depending on what you're looking to arrive at. And as we mentioned earlier, if you're doing a 4 A-level programme, there would need to be, I think, a really sort of good reason for that from a progression point of view. It definitely needs thinking about carefully. It's not something many of our students do. Where they are doing it is students who have got a really, really strong academic profile that suggests that would be a good choice and a good decision to make for them.
So when we're talking about CAP schools, if you're unsure about what this means, I've included on the screen here a list of the Cambridge Area Partnership schools. This information is also on our website as well, so do go and have a look if you're not sure. But when we refer to CAP, that's the actual list of schools that we're referring to. So how do you apply? We use a application platform called My Choice 16, but depending on your school, you may apply in different ways. So to find the information, you'll go onto our website and you'll click on Study with Us and then click on How to Apply, or just put How to Apply in the search area. If you are from a CAP school or your school is listed on My Choice 16, then you must follow the guidance provided by your school, because they operate in a slightly different way, and your school will actually upload all of the results and your predicted grades, your reference, and they'll do it all by the CAP by the deadline. If your school isn't listed on My Choice 16, then you will apply as an out of area, and you'll then need to go through and follow a slightly different process. When you're looking at our website, you need to select option 2, and that will give you all the information that you need. If you're unsure, click on option 1. There's a list on there that shows you what the CAP schools are, and it will also show you the other schools that are listed on My Choice 16. So Ian, you're just going to explain about personal statements.
So sometimes applicants are really interested to know, well, what do I need to put in the personal statement? What should I do? Is it used to determine whether I get an interview or a guidance meeting? I think let me talk to you a little bit about how we use the personal statement. Do please write us a nice personal statement. But in terms of how we use it, it's really useful for our information. What I'm interested in doing before a guidance meeting, when we take those guidance meetings through and meet applicants, is to have an understanding about what subjects the students wants to do, why the applicant wants to do those subjects, what their sort of future hopes and aspirations are, because that allows us to make sure that you're picking the right subjects to keep those dreams alive. And then I'm also interested in what your personal interests are, any sports you play, musical activities, social activities, community groups, anything that you do beyond school, so that I can help signpost you towards the types of other experiences that might be available to you at the college that you can make the most of. And then just coming back to the future plans, don't worry if you're not quite sure yet what you want to do. That's fine too. Not everyone at the age of 15, 16 knows what they want to do. No one's expecting that of you. But if you have got a sense, let us know so that we can help you with that, with those subject choices. And if you haven't, that's fine, and we'll help you pick subjects that are ones you enjoy, ones you're good at, and that will keep some options open for you.
So our checklist. So this is really just to kind of, when you're thinking about your application, these are the kind of the top tips that we would give you when just before you, as you're doing your final check before you submit it, whether you're submitting it and you're passing it across to your school so they can do the final check, or you're actually submitting it yourself. So first of all, we always say list 5 subjects to keep your options open. At this stage, it really should be your best guess of subjects. So if you're struggling to think, oh, what am I going to put down as option 3, option 4, just look at the list of subjects, think about the ones you might like to do, and then, list those subjects in there. The reason we say 5 is that for any reason you're unqualified for any of your subjects, we would still be able to potentially invite you to a guidance meeting. If you only give us 3 subjects, and for any reason you're unqualified for those subjects, you wouldn't have a viable programme, and we wouldn't be able to invite you to a guidance meeting. So please just fill the boxes on the application form. The next thing is really, as you're doing that, just check the entry requirements on the website. I think somebody put in one of the FAQs, like, what are the top tips for, where do things happen in the past that we need to kind of think about? Really do read the entry requirements, because that's crucial for us to be able to sort of smoothly progress your application form. You do only have to be qualified for 3 of your chosen subjects. So if you're really sort of struggling, you think, oh God, I don't know what 5 to put down, then just please make sure that you're qualified for 3 of those subjects, and make sure that you've calculated your admissions score. If you haven't, go and do it after this session. It's really easy to do, but just make sure that you know what your score is. And if your score is broadly aligned with the scores that we've shown this evening, then do put in your application. We do sometimes offer tolerances on scores, so if you're a few points below, please don't worry, apply anyway, because we do as much as we possibly can to be able to bring as many applicants through as possible. You do need to place Hills Road as first priority or second behind a CAP sixth form. So what will happen is, as you do your application, it will ask you about what priority you want to apply Hills Road. When we say second behind a CAP sixth form, that means if you want to put Camborne, Cast, Chesterton, Comberton, Northstowe, the Oaks, or the Cambridge Maths School before Hills Road, that's absolutely fine. So please, when you're going through, if another centre needs to be first choice, please don't panic. You can put our second choice. And finally, is just make sure that your application includes your permanent home address. This is really important, because it's on the basis of this that we will actually then look at our selection. And if you have any queries, look at our admissions policy on the website. You can search it up very easily, and it's in section 5.8a, but it is important that you check that information. So we'll now look at the journey. So the non-CAP deadline. So for any of you that are applying and your status through My Choice 16, or the option that you've selected, is out of area, then your deadline is the 6th of January. Now, the reason it's slightly earlier than the CAP deadline is because that gives your referee time to provide your predicted grades and your reference. I would say that I would like to just warn you that the college is closed during the Christmas period. So if you are putting your application in, I would really recommend that you do it before Christmas, because then there's plenty of time for us to then be able to work through that. As I say, the college will be closed over the Christmas holidays, and we won't be answering any queries during that time. If you're applying from a CAP school, again, please make sure you follow the information that's given to you by your school. But just to reassure you, every year our partner schools load up the applications either on the deadline or the few days before, and all of that information will come through to us. What they will ask you to do, and what every applicant should do, is once those applications are sent, you need to go in and look to make sure that any information that the school has provided for you for your predicted grades, it's what you're expected to see, because that is what we will base our decisions on. So if for any reason you think I was expecting to see a 7, not a 6 for maths, then you need to contact your school. You can let Hills Road know, but please contact your school, and then they will then need to resupply the correct grade. So once we've actually then started processing your applications, your application will be transferred onto our internal system, and we'll contact you because we'll be asking you to give a little bit more information. There will be a few more questions that we'll need you to answer, and it might be, for example, that we need you to check some of the information that you've given us. For example, if you've not given us your personal email address and you've given us your school email address, we will ask you to change it, because when you get to enrolment in August, you probably won't be checking your school email address. You may not even have access to it. So all of that vital information is going to be going to an inbox that you can no longer access. So there'll be things like that that we'll ask you to do. And that platform will also be used. So if we are able to invite you to a guidance meeting, you'll book your guidance meeting via our system. Guidance meetings happen in early February and they're all online, and then offers are sent out at the end of March. If you become an offer holder, there is a schedule of kind of keep in touch emails, and this is where kind of some of the really fun bits start to happen. So you'll be able to sign up for the Christmas musical. You'll be able to sign up to do auditions. You'll have musical ensembles you'll be doing auditions for. Some of those are done via video. You'll be able to sign up for sports trials as well. And these are all set so that they are towards the end of your exams, or if they're video, then they might be slightly earlier, but sports trials are typically once your exams is finished. You then get to come to the college for the day in early July. That's where you get to explore the campus, meet some other students, meet your teachers, have a future ready session, have your subject taster sessions, and find out more about the EPQ and the extended project, and enrichment. So if you're applying to the college and you haven't had a chance to come to the campus before, the Welcome to Hills Day is really important for you. It's important for all students, to be honest, because it really helps you to gauge whether Hills Road is the right place for you, but especially for those of you that haven't actually been able to come to the campus before, because you'll be able to experience it on that day. At the end of that week, we also have our open event. Now, that open event is for those students looking to join the college in 2027. However, if you weren't able to come to the open event in July this year, you're very welcome to book yourself a ticket so that your whole family can come and see the campus. And by that stage, you should then be able to have a really good idea of whether Hills Road is the right kind of place for you and somewhere that you want to spend the next 2 years. You can register your interest for our open event, so you're notified when tickets go available. And after this webinar, we will send an email round and we'll make sure that link is included. But as I say, it's primarily for those people that haven't been able to come to the campus before. And then on enrolment day, which will be GCSE results day. So once you received your results, you will log on and you will follow our online process. And if for any reason you're unqualified for any of your subjects, we will contact you and we will begin the process of having conversations with you about how we can support you and how we might be able to look at tolerances on some of those subjects. So it's very much a discussion about what we do next. At enrolment, you can also put in for course changes, and we do an awful lot. We normally typically do sort of between about 800 and 1,000. So that really is your time to say, I might not be so sure about my subject, I want to put in for a course change, or perhaps you just did much better in your GCSEs in a particular subject and you'd like to give it a go at A level. And if for any reason you don't receive an offer from us at the end of March, you're then very welcome to submit a post-results application on GCSE results day. And because we would have already received your application previously, the process for you is really quite quick. All you'll have to do is upload your actual results, and then we go from there. So now we're going to go through some of the questions that were asked, and also some of the typical questions that we often hear from applicants.
Yeah, so I think I was taking the first one, which was around the extended project qualification, which all Year 12 students do. So there's a question about, well, what are the limits of it? And there aren't very many limits to it, really, is the answer. You know, students can create an artifact, they can do more of a traditional research piece and write a sort of a dissertation style report. They can put on an event, they can put on a performance, and it's about sort of that drawing board to delivery and recording, planning how they got there, of critically evaluating along the way, thinking about, reflecting about what they've learned and the skills that they've developed, that goes into making the grade up that the students receive for the EPQ.
So we also have questions around further maths, and some students may not quite be at the right level to be able to apply for further maths when they're sort of submitting their application. But then you get brilliant qualification, your grades through on GCSE results day, and actually think, I would like to try and take further maths. Absolutely, at enrolment you can add subjects, you can remove subjects. It completely depends on what you want to do, or you put that request in, and then what we do is we then look to see what changes we can actually accommodate and manage it that way.
Question about oversubscription. So are you regularly oversubscribed on applications? And I think the answer to that is that occasionally we're oversubscribed in certain subjects, but when that happens, we can see that on a couple of points in the process. Firstly, when we've had the guidance meetings and we're looking at the offers we're going to make, and then also at GCSE results. And because we've got departments, for example, the Earth Sciences department or the Economics and Business department, where teachers can teach across subjects, often we're able to make changes and put on perhaps additional classes in certain subjects, switch a geography class to an environmental science class, or vice versa, if we need to do that to set up our teaching to meet where the demand is coming from.
Questions around post-results places, how many are available? So post-results places are subject to the space available in individual subjects, and that is primarily the process that we go through to be able to make those, to offer those places. But typically we're normally looking between 80 to 100 places each year that we're able to bring students through on.
So in terms of what are your requirements for conditional offers, so we've walked you through how the admission score works and also the subject requirements. And so we do consider whether exceptional circumstances, applying some tolerances to those admission scores. So you know, if there's something particularly going on in a young person's life, you know, I think the main thing we'd say is share that with the admissions team, drop an email in and make us aware of that, get your school to make us aware of that, because we will look on things sympathetically wherever we possibly can.
So if you've taken your mocks and you're feeling that you haven't possibly done as well as you thought you would, or you maybe had a bit of a tough time, then you do have options. So if you feel that your grades are going to be a little bit lower, then do think around working out how you can kind of make the most of your application to the college. So if you were thinking about applying for the sciences, for example, but you're not quite at that score, but actually you could be qualified for other subjects where the minimum score is required, then pop those down in your application as well. Because what happens is at enrolment, providing you achieve the entry requirements, the GCSE entry requirements in the sciences, for example, you would be able to request a course change for those subjects. But because you're an offer holder at that point, you would simply request a course change. if you're looking at subjects. So do really look at those entry requirements and see which subjects that might work for you. And, you know, again, if you're thinking, I'm not sure I'm even there for the admissions score, you can still apply to the college, because as I said previously, once you'll be on our system, making a post results application would be very easy for you. You would just simply upload your grades, your actual grades, and because you'd applied before, we would then have your application previously, and then we would be able to hopefully expedite your that post results application.
In terms of what happens if I do better in my final exams, can I apply? Yes, absolutely. So this is where the post results application can be a result, something for you. So if you have chosen not to apply previously, or you had applied but not got an offer and then have done far better than your predicted grade suggested, please do get in touch and make that post results application.
And on GCSE results day, if you don't quite get what you actually need, the only way we can help you is if you upload your grade evidence, and so that we can see it, so then we can start working out, well, actually what options are available to you. And in the majority, students are invited onto site to meet with one of our team, and then we look at those options with you so that we can get you onto a program that you can take. As I say, sometimes we are able to offer tolerances on certain subjects. It really does depend on those kind of the enrolment patterns for each year as to what we're able to do.
And then a question came in about what if you got 8s and 9s in other subjects, but only a 3 in English language? Could you still apply? And the answer to that's yes. So, you know, we don't really mind what grades make up the admission score. The main thing would be that you were choosing or you'd need to be qualified for subjects by your GCSE grade. So in that particular eventuality, you would be unlikely to be following a humanities program because you wouldn't be qualified by the English requirement, but it might be that you were more qualified for more of a STEM program. And one of the things to say is that for any students who don't get to 4 in English language or maths GCSE, we will work with them and support them to work through and do a resit. And that's often really helpful for progression, because at university, it may be that university programs are looking for you to have at least a 4 in English language or maths.
So I think I mentioned this earlier, some people ask, what are the common errors? I mean, the main one really, and it's not particularly an error per se, but it's students include 3 subjects and then they become unqualified for 1 subject. And it means that we can't invite them to the guidance meeting because you don't have a viable programme. So that's where we just really do say, please put down your 5 subjects, because it will help your application, it will keep your options open. And then if anything doesn't quite work out as you had hoped, you still have kind of a backup in there to help support that application.
And then, as I mentioned actually earlier, in terms of the personal statements, we don't use it to screen and decide who we're going to meet. We don't use it to make decisions on who will and won't get offers to study at the college, but we do use it to get the most out of the guidance meeting for you. So that's where it becomes really important and helpful for us, really.
And in terms of distance from the college, is it detrimental to our application? We classify a sustainable commute as about 1 hour. And the way we do that is we look at the distance as the crow flies. But as you would see in section 7 of our admissions policy, there are other sort of special considerations that we will look at when we're making our offers. So if you're sort of around about an hour's commute away, or even if it is slightly over, please do think about making an application, because obviously it will depend completely on the patterns of the cohort of that year as to who we're able to offer to.
And then the final frequently asked question we get is around, can I apply if I don't have a local address? And what we do is we refer you back to the admissions policy there. What we ask you to do is apply from your permanent home address, and we define what that means and looks like in the admissions policy, and we'll use that to determine whether you have a sustainable commute. Now, if you've got a particular exceptional circumstance, please do contact the admissions team on their email, admissions@hillsroad.ac.uk, and we can look at that, because we do have the ability to look at those exceptional circumstances within our admissions policy. So if you're currently, in a position where you're living outside of that local area, but for example, if there's been a bereavement or a parental separation that's going to lead to some movement in terms of geography, do get in touch and we'll look at whether we can do anything there in terms of our exceptional circumstances. If it's the case that you're hoping to move into the area in order to take up a place at the college, then we would ask you to do that via our post results service in August. I think that's all of the frequently asked questions. We often find that trying to manage questions in a webinar like this on the spot is quite tricky in terms of triaging and grouping those questions. So thank you so much for sending those in. I know many of those you've sent in ahead of the event, and hopefully that's been helpful in managing that. If there are any questions you still have and we haven't been able to answer in this webinar, please do email admissions@hillsroad.ac.uk and we can get back to you with answers to those. But other than that, I will wrap this up for this evening, and thank you very, very much for your interest in joining the college and for watching the webinar, and we look forward to receiving applications from you.
Thanks for watching.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.